Welcome, everybody. And this time we are going to talk about one of my personal favorite films, and it's probably one of my guests' favorites as well. He can correct me more on that after, but you know, we're talking about Alien. The 1979 film where it possibly started this beautiful thing for sci-fi back in the day. And Doug here, who is a lot more wiser than me, as I may say, can probably just say that he probably seen it in theaters. If not, then we'll just figure out when we first got introduced to the film, and we'll just go from there because this is pretty much just our thoughts of Alien 40 years later. And with me to discuss it is none other than my buddy who I met way back in the day, which was probably a Wednesday, I don't know, or Tuesday. Anyway, this is my good pal, Doug, also known as Guapo. Welcome, Doug. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining, man. I mean, I know you're a big fan of the Alien franchise, and we played like the Alien Colonial Marines, and then we talked a little bit about like Alien Isolation and stuff like that. So, I figured I would like to have somebody that might have a little bit more knowledge than me, because, of course, like I said, you're a little bit wiser than I am, if I may say. But yeah, we'll start in. So, Doug, when was the very first time you got introduced into the 1979 Alien?
My father took me to see it in the theater. At the time, I would have had to have been either 7 or 8. It came out shortly before my 8th birthday, so probably wasn't the best choice to take a young child to, but it always stuck in my head, and I guess it's definitely my favorite franchise. Though it hasn't really it hasn't always seen the attention as it should have. But I think it's the first sci-fi movie that I can ever remember where it doesn't seem fake. Where it's as you were talking earlier, is that whether or not it stands up to today's standards, other than when you're looking at the Ripley or with the various characters that are on Mother in the little science room or cubicle. I don't know, or not cubicle, but other than when they're typing into the computer and you look at that and laugh at how outdated that is. The rest of the movie really stands up. It's still, if you replace those scenes with modern computer, it could almost be released today and still be as terrifying and believable as it was back then.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to say I, of course, wasn't born then. I was born in 1987. I believe like a year after Aliens came out, but oh God, I want to say it was like 95, 96 when I probably was introduced to Alien. So I must have been like 8 or 9 years old. Um, and I just remember kind of being petrified of this alien, just because it's not one of those things that you were kind of mentioning where a little kid I don't think should really be seeing. But then again, when I was also around 8 years old, I kind of snuck downstairs and kind of watched a little bit of like Bram Stoker Dracula, but I didn't realize that was the movie until later on as I grew up. So when I rewatched it and saw that specific scene, it reminded me of that time when I snuck downstairs to see it. But yeah, I will 100% agree with you though that even with the modern technology today, if this film was made in the way it was, I think it could be done as long as it's not with the CGI aliens as we kind of seen nowadays. Especially, I don't know if you noticed, Doug, not to turn away from this movie for a minute, but just to kind of point it out. But did you know that they made a practical alien suit for Alien Covenant but they never actually used it. So instead, they just went with the whole full-blown CGI.
I haven't read much about. Actually, I hadn't read anything about what they did in making Prometheus or Covenant. I do remember that the CGI in Resurrection was so bad that it really ruined the movie for me. It was horrible. I know you had the tall, skinny guy in the suit for the first movie, and though having the limitations of the human body mechanics, they couldn't do the backwards bending knees that they do now. It was more realistic looking, and it was scarier. I really felt that Resurrection was laughable, and you could tell it wasn't real. I could never get into the suspension of disbelief to get scared when it came to that movie. I mean, there are times you get startled, but you're not really, at least for me, I was truly never scared. Whereas Aliens, and Alien 3, I thought were actually scary movies. All the way through, I was able to get into the movie and, have that suspension of disbelief. The CGI, some of today's CGI is great, but, it doesn't compare to having that real object, or in that case, the suit in the filming.
You're right, and another thing that kind of didn't really make any sense with Alien Resurrection, where there's two sides to this, but I don't know. I can't really vouch on it, especially where the alien killed him. But another scene that I will point out with Alien Resurrection is the scene where the Xenomorph killed the guy by his little tongue, and he penetrates him through the top of the head, and then he's got or the back of the head, but he's got that couple seconds to actually reach behind him and notice there's blood, and then he falls dead. I mean, there's the two sides is, well, I guess that makes sense because technically, even when you're decapitated, your head is still active for 20 seconds or something like that before it actually dies or whatever. And then that's one of the arguments. The other argument is, well, where he was hit, he should have been dead instantly anyway. He shouldn't have had time to reach behind his head. So, I don't know.
I felt it was all, I won't say comical. I mean, not comical, but it seemed like more something out of a comic book than out of a horror movie. And I don't know if that was born of the success of the Dark Horse comics that were going that were being published in the 90s, or if that was just someone not really having respect for the legacy of the of the franchise and what Ridley Scott and James Cameron had brought us. And then I believe it was David Fincher that was the original director of Alien 3, though that I could be wrong on that. So the original director was fired midway through Alien 3 or towards the end of Alien 3, and then it was, the theatrical release was a disaster as a result. The director's cut is great, but I think most of the things that had to do with Alien Resurrection just didn't give the franchise the respect that it deserved, and didn't translate into a scary movie. It translated more into a farce.
Yeah, there was a lot of bumpy road for that film. But to get back on track, for the original Alien, what about the atmosphere that Ridley Scott has created with his crew and stuff, do you feel just being in a ship is more scary versus like um, Covenant or Prometheus where we're on a different planet and exploring there, or do you think all the terrors in that one ship actually makes what Alien is like a great film?
Well, it's kind of hard to compare them in a way because I mean, they were so. It definitely was. Well, I think that the darkened hallways with the failing lights and going through the air ducts of the Nostromo was scarier than exploring the little, I don't know what you call it, a base in Prometheus.
Yeah, we could call it a base for right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Base, it's, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure what you should call it or what Ridley Scott just would refer to it as.
I will say I like the fact that it's just one area with the Nostromo ship. I just like it. I find it scarier because for how big the ship is and how many vents and possibilities are for this thing to roam around, especially when we see one of the crew members trying to, go down the stairs, or I mean, sorry, go down the ladder while investigating this signal. I believe, if memory serves me right, I completely spaced on watching this movie before talking about it, and we see the alien just pop out to grab the guy that is coming down the ladder, and that was, I think, scary as well. And then you got the infamous scene with Brent,
Right.
with Brett trying to get the cat, and we get that cool scene, which that's probably one of my favorites, and I think that's also in the director's cut. I don't even think it's actually in the theoretical.
No, that was part of the theatrical. Yeah, where the alien grabbed Brett. There was a later scene with Brett that was filmed but wasn't part of the theatrical release. But yes, it's. I mean, both of those scenes were terrifying, for different reasons. I mean, one thing you see the alien sneaking up on Brett. The other time you can see the panic that Dallas is experiencing when they can't figure out where the alien is in relation to him. They just know that it's closing the distance to him. And of course, as we know, Dallas went the wrong direction, and that was his end. But they were. I think that that maybe claustrophobic little set, where there's not a whole lot of places for anyone to go. Certainly nowhere to go to escape from the alien. Certainly made it scarier.
Oh, right, yeah, for sure. And I mean that even that Jonesy the cat is like one tough crew member. I will say when the alien like kicked it or whatever, that was kind of funny. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking like every time I pop in the Alien film, I'm always back enjoying it with like almost as if it was my childhood days. It really does have that creepy atmosphere, especially when we get maybe it's the first time actually seeing it where he's swinging right above Brett, and that's kind of creepy, just that swinginess, and then like I believe we see the other shot, and he's not even there anymore, meaning the Xenomorph, and it's just I don't know, man. It's just one of my favorite, probably because they don't really show the alien that much. They keep it a mystery, a mysterious creature that we don't see, and we don't really know what his next move is going to be compared to what we have nowadays with like well, Prometheus, I don't know if we call it an alien film, but at the same time, it's more of a junk film. There's a lot of people that bash it, and then there's a lot of people that say it's actually not that bad. But I see where the people that are bashing it come from because there's way too much talking. You don't really get to enjoy the environment because of how much I guess what I mean by that is there's so much dialogue that we can't just look at the surrounding and appreciate the atmosphere that Ridley has created for us for Prometheus. But when it comes to the original Alien, we have so many non-dialogue, very quiet scenes, especially with Ripley when she's trying to escape and trying to find the other crew members that at least are still alive to try to get them going and everything else. And speaking of which, so for back in the day, Doug, when it comes to horror films or sci-fi, uh, I believe Alien was one of those films too that actually introduced a female protagonist. Now, when you first saw Ellen Ripley or Sigourney Weaver take this role and become that badass, do you have any first impressions on her? Did you like her? You know, what did you think about Ellen Ripley?
I can't remember how I felt about her back then. Again, I was only 7 or 8 years old. Uh, but looking back at it, I would say she is one of the few that is really believable. The way Sigourney played Ripley, the way that the character was written, she's very believable in everything, in every part of her role. And again, it's not too many that I can think of where I really believe the actress portraying the tough women. And it's not to say there aren't tough women out there. I mean, I've met some. I'm a former Marine. I've met female Marines that can be pretty tough. But a lot of times these women that are cast in these roles, they're just not very believable in the role. And as far as Ellen goes, or Sigourney Weaver goes, again, don't really remember how I felt about it in '79, but I remember when I saw Aliens, which ironically is the only one I have not seen in the theater. And all the others I actually, other than Alien, all the others I saw on opening day. But again, Aliens is the only one didn't see in the theater. So when I finally saw that in '87, I still, I remember there believing Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley and believing Ellen Ripley had the strength, the mental strength to be that character to survive the situation she was in.
I completely agree with what you said, and I'm trying to remember unless I'm getting the two films getting mixed up. I know it was either Alien or Alien when there was a deleted scene that you can see in the director's cut when we're getting talk or when Sigourney Weaver talking about her daughter, and I'm trying to remember. Do you remember that scene from Aliens or Aliens?
It's from Aliens. That would have been when she was talking to Carter Burke, Paul Reiser's character, before they embarked on the doomed expedition back to LV-26, now named Archeron, or I think it was Archeron.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And that's yeah, and then it's an interesting scene to see if you watch the special edition, the director's cut, but that and along with the scene where she and Hicks exchanged first names just kind of didn't really fit with the rest of the movie. So I have always kind of, like I said, I thought it was interesting to see the scenes, but I've always kind of agreed with the decision to leave them out of the theatrical release.
Yeah, I mean, I completely think it shouldn't have been in the theoretical thing, especially since it wasn't really anything too important and didn't really bring anything to the table at the time. But it does make you wonder, though, like, okay, so she does have a daughter. Where is she? And then we kind of see that with, I first believe it was Alien Isolation, really. But we'll talk about that probably in a minute. But you know, when watching that one specific scene, especially with Aliens, where Ripley is trying to save Newt, and I I drawn a brain fart right now for sure because, like I said, I kind of wish I watched the movie before this chat, but I almost had back in the day, I should say, like back when I was little, I almost saw Sigourney Weaver or playing Ellen Ripley. Not only believable because she definitely put all of it, all of her character into it. That's for sure. Like she is Ripley, and I almost felt she portrayed almost like a mother figure, and maybe that was not maybe that was from, like I said, Aliens, but I don't remember the first one that well, and I don't really think there was any type of way to signify a mother role in the first film anyway, because it was more like they woke up, this is what was going on. They found out that one of their members was a android. Then we get the problem with the face hugger, and then the chest burst scene and all that stuff, which leads into the whole movie. But um, I guess besides like what you said, like I'll just have to touch on to the fact again that there is a lot of people out there that can make a great female protagonist. It's just finding that one specific person. Otherwise, if we get somebody that tries to be something that they're not, if that makes sense, like they don't seem to be able to be that believable, to be that character.
Well, yeah, I don't know that back in '79, or I guess it was probably filmed in '78, but back then, I can't think of any female actresses that I would have thought could have handled a role like that. And again, it's not trying to sound sexist at all. I can't think of any actresses back then that I really would have bought in that sort of a role. And I think Sigourney Weaver did a wonderful job, and she kind of set the bar.
Yeah, I mean, I got asked a question once of if this movie was being made in this modern day, who would be a great Ellen Ripley? And I really don't know how to even answer that question. There's a lot of good actors nowadays, but as for somebody that is trying to be that badass Ellen Ripley, it's really hard for me to even pick somebody. I really don't know who I would even pick nowadays to be Ellen Ripley. Would you know, Doug? If you got asked that question, like if Alien would be made, like let's just say this year, who would you think would fit Ellen Ripley even today?
I would say I could never accept anyone other than Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley. I just, even if it was being remade today, I know obviously you couldn't have Sigourney Weaver playing the same role, expecting to pass herself off 40 years younger than she is. But it's something that I think Ellen Ripley and Sigourney Weaver. I don't think you could separate them. I just couldn't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Now,
answer your question. It's just I guess I couldn't answer. There's no way I could answer that question. I just
yeah, exactly.
never another woman playing Ellen Ripley. It just couldn't happen in my mind. I would never accept it.
Right. Right. No, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I just don't know who would be an Ellen Ripley besides Sigourney Weaver. Now, is there any problems that you have with the first Alien film, Doug?
The only problem I ever really had with Alien is that I wanted to see more of the abandoned, the derelict spacecraft. Same problem I had with Aliens. I just wanted to see more of that. That was just something that just always interested me, and wasn't enough of that derelict spacecraft in the movie. But not that I really know how really can think of a way to have written it in to have more of it. It's just that's the only thing is I've just always wanted more of that.
Now, we're talking like even the scene with the engineer on the gun in the middle of the room and stuff like that type of scene, especially the underground layer with the eggs, like that type of sort of stuff.
Yes, and though they touched upon it, or they just touch upon it, you see a lot in Prometheus, but I guess it came off to me as it's not really being what Ridley would have done if he had more of the ship in '79. Prometheus just seemed to kind of go in a different direction than he would have gone in 1979 if he were filming more, making Alien a longer movie.
True. I guess what they could have done, maybe if they thought about it back then, but if they took what they did with Prometheus a little bit, like maybe some of the engineers that are standing up in that one hallway, I guess, or whatever that was supposed to be, that section, you know what I mean, with Prometheus, that one scene with the hallway or whatever, with the engineers that are kind of like lined up, kind of like the knights in shining armor, how they're lined up sometimes in a hallway. Like maybe they could have added that, like as they're walking through to the big room. Maybe I don't know. That's where I'm gonna have to bring in the Alien Isolation for a minute, where I kind of liked how they did that in Alien Isolation, where we actually got to see that ship, that engineer on the gun in the game. I didn't really care for how they did it really with Alien Colonial Marines. It almost seemed like they put way too many of those engineers on the gun in it. But the way Alien Isolation did it, I think was just the right amount. But we saw a little bit more of the ship. But I think I go back to you kind of saying there wasn't enough for sure to explore.
Yeah, I blocked out most of Colonial Marines. That was probably my most anticipated game, and by far my biggest disappointment in gaming. It was just such a horrible letdown. It had the opportunity to be so much better than it was, which I know that could be said for a lot of games, but everything about Colonial Marines was just so sloppy. What I remember most about Colonial Marines was that through most of the game, I would just try to run to the next checkpoint, just trying to get through it, because me being obsessive compulsive with trophies, I needed to have my platinum and 100% on PlayStation, but I just wasn't having any fun with that game.
Yeah,
I
and
just stopped it.
yeah, I mean, I told my fiance one day that like I was like, well, maybe if you really wanted to, I could show you this game. Otherwise, what we could just do is just find a YouTube video, and you could see what the hell I'm talking about when I mean that this game was not what it was made to be. But then again, we can thank Gearbox for that because the reason behind it was, I guess, Sega too threw Gearbox money, and then Gearbox actually used the money on Borderlands 2 instead of Alien Colonial Marines. And then that kind of started the lawsuit as well when we ended up getting that one trailer, and then we ended up getting that gameplay from that E3, and none of that shit was even in the final game. So that's where a lawsuit came into play from somebody. I forget who it was because it's been so long, and it's just one of those things where it's just like you gave us false advertising anyway. So
Yeah, I know there's someone I think sued Gearbox and Randy Pitchford, who I believe was in charge of Gearbox, over that game. I don't know what happened with it. I didn't pay much attention to the lawsuit. I did find it amusing, and I remember what I had read, and I don't know that this is accurate because sometimes so often they put things in print without actually really researching them well. But as you said, that it was rumored that Gearbox took the money that Sega gave them to develop Colonial Marines and used that to develop Borderlands 2, as I refer to as Boredomlands 2, and then they farmed off the development of Colonial Marines to some other company. But that I wasn't involved in it, so I can't say for sure that what I that those rumors were true. But all I can say for sure is that Colonial Marines damaged the franchise, and certainly did not live up to its expectations, or live up to our expectations of it.
yeah, no, oh man, I mean, I kind of remember that when I got it, even, and I started playing it because I believe I like had the day off or something. Something was going on that day. I think I took it off or something, and I think I even mentioned it to you and our other buddy Carlos that I'm like not really minding the game. Maybe just because I was just having fun with it by myself. I wasn't really playing with anybody else really. So maybe that whole experience of just doing it single player for the campaign and just killing aliens was just in my mind. I guess I don't know. Maybe because of the fact I was like a colonial marine soldier or something. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what I can say about my younger self anymore, except for that I don't know what the hell I was thinking of when I was saying that I didn't mind it. But because especially after trying to do the multiplayer crap, that was a pain in the ass, and getting all those stupid in-game uh, I forget what they were, like in game whatever, like you had to
Yeah,
do this. Yeah, yeah,
those challenges were
yeah, the
well,
challenge.
those were horrible. Anytime that you had a challenge where you had to kill a certain amount of aliens, the the NPC characters would kill too many of them, and you wouldn't be able to get the challenge completed. And then any time that you needed help because you needed to get through a section, or you had a challenge where you had to get somewhere, then they would do nothing. They would stand around and just basically get in your way. It
Yeah,
was horribly programmed. And as for the challenges, well, also, my wife was playing the game too, and she just decided she couldn't stand it. So
yeah, she
I ended up
completely quit. Yeah,
yeah, I ended up doing all of the challenges on my account, and on her account to get her the platinum trophy. And a lot of the time I wound up basically running two controllers at the same time. I'd drop one, pick up the other, quickly do something, drop the other, or pick up the first one again. And that was also, running from one checkpoint to another when I was doing it in co-op. That's what I do. I'd basically just run, trying to get to the next checkpoint. If I died, I'd pick up the other controller and start running with that one while the first one would respawn. It was just the concept, the story were good. The execution of the game was horrible.
If we got in what they showed us at that one E3, especially with like the corridors on fire with the alien, to I believe it was that encounter with the alien queen, that would have been, I think, more creepier. But I don't know what happened to those scenes, so that we ended up getting the crappy rundown version that took how many years? 10 years, I think it was.
I don't remember when it came out, but I seem to remember it being on the cover of Game Informer in 2008.
2013, I believe, because then I think it was 2014 is when we got Alien Isolation. So I want to say 2013 for Alien Colonial Marines. I'm gonna take a quick.
I think maybe it was 2012, judging by memory of I know it was. I was playing it where I live now, and I moved here November of 11. But it seems to me that November of 13 is when the PS4 came out, and Colonial Marines. Yeah, Colonial Marines was out before the PS4 was out, so 13 sounds about right.
Yeah, it was February 12th, 2013 is what I'm seeing for a release date. Which, I'm kind of glad that we did get Alien Isolation a year later, that's for sure. But, yeah, I mean, it just wasn't what we should have gotten. And I'm just glad that Alien Isolation gave us, like, that alien feeling, like the movie did. But I know we were playing as Amanda Ripley and stuff. But, Doug, you would know this better than I would. But, did the Alien comics come before the movie or after the movie? Did you read them? Did they kind of follow like the movie at all, or do you not really recall?
The comics came, I believe, in '89. Was when Dark Horse started them. Could have been '90. I know I was first time I was exposed to them was when I was in the Marines, stationed on Camp Pendleton. They actually used Ripley, Hicks, and Newt because these were before Alien 3 came out. And it was a continuation of their story through, I think it was a six issue series, then a 4-issue series, then another 4-issue series, which I think was the Aliens Earth War. And it was actually a pretty good storyline, but then, of course, Alien 3 came out, and they killed off Hicks and Newt and Ripley. So that kind of changed, obviously kind of destroyed that storyline. Though they did get released later as actual, mass market paperbacks, and they just changed the names of Ripley, Hicks, and Newt. And I can't remember what their characters were. Actually, pretty interesting books. It was a good storyline, but they came out between Aliens and Alien 3, and around the time Yeah, actually, I think before Predator 2 also, which, Predator 2, if you remember at the end, does have an alien skull in the trophy case on the little ship.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Unfortunately for me, I haven't really been able to find like the original comics except for I think it was the original black and white Aliens comics. I think is the one I have. I know they
Uh,
threw it all together into a big like hardcover book though, and I ended up getting that. I recently read the what did they call it? Is it William Gibson? Was that his name? The guy that was gonna do the original Alien 3. It was William something, I believe. I'm trying to look real quick because I don't want to butcher his name. Yep, William Gibson's. William Gibson's Alien 3, the unused script of Alien 3. They turned that into a comic book series, and I just recently got my hands on issues 3, 4, and 5 on Amazon, and that's actually really, really cool. I don't know if you gotten a chance, Doug, to read them, but they might be up your alley. Like, this was the original idea before we got what we see for Alien 3 nowadays.
Back in 2001, I think it was, I downloaded about 3 unused scripts for Alien 3 and read them all. But they kind of blurred together. I mean, at this point, I don't remember a whole lot about any of them. I remember one of them seemed to take place on a planet made of wood, which my memory could be really wrong on that. But
Was
again,
that
this was
the
18
engineer
years ago.
planet?
Again,
Was that the engineer planet or the other planet?
I don't think it had anything to do with the engineers. But
Uh, I thought I
again,
I thought I read somewhere that they might have tried to do that. Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie.
again, this was 18 years ago, so my memory's a little rusty on that. But while we were talking, I did pull out my Dark Horse comics, which were semi-handy because I'm tempted to put them up on eBay. The Aliens 1 of 6, so the first one was 1988. And then it may have shown up in Dark Horse Presents as early as 87, but that was probably also just earlier 1988. And then there was one comic called Videodrome, I think, that did have the Alien Queen in it. As I think it had something to do with things coming to life through a TV.
Right.
An Alien Queen on the cover of that comic, and I think that was really the first time they were ever in modern comics. But the Dark Horse ones are really considered to be the only thing that actually kind of follows along with the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different, I'll just say universes now when it comes to the alien universe that, it's hard to even dive into a big timeline, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, there's just so much thing going on. Like, the latest Alien comic were Dead Orbit, then it went into, like, Dust to Dust, then it went into, like, Defiant, now it's going into, like, Resistance, and then the new one that's coming out that's going to be bringing Amanda Ripley back into the story is like Aliens Rescue or The Rescue or something like that. So I mean, there's a lot of Aliens comics, and I mean, at least the comics are doing good compared to what the movies are doing, and I mean, I think that's why Alien 40 years later is still one of my top favorites just because it's just so well done, and it's it's just very dark, creepy, and it makes the alien that scary because we just don't really see it. And when we do see it, it's it's really quick, and it's, we just don't know where it could be on a ship. And yeah.
Aliens is about the only thing that can draw me out to opening day of a movie. At this point, I've gotten to the point where I don't want to deal with the crowds. I'll wait several weeks till people are not in the theater, and I don't have to deal with people on their cell phones and talking to their movie, my wife and I can basically be the only two in the theater. But when it comes to Aliens, that's definitely, I have to be there opening. Usually I catch the midnight show. I did that with, actually I did that with Alien versus Predator, the first one, then also Prometheus and Covenant. We caught both those at the midnight showing. I believe the Predator, we saw that at the midnight showing too. Also Predators at the midnight showing. But I think the rest of the, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, and Alien versus Predator 2, I just saw on opening day, but wasn't actually there at the midnight showing. But yeah, it is. As far as anything else goes, you can't draw me out to deal with the crowds to be there at opening night. But Aliens, I can't miss it. I have to see it immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, of course, because of, my age and stuff, I never really got to see 1, 2, 3 or Resurrection in theaters, but I did see AVP Requiem, and Covenant in theaters. I never actually saw Prometheus in theaters, and it's probably because I didn't really know or hear that Prometheus was actually an alien film. But then again, I don't really have cable, so I was relying on horror websites really, and I don't know. I don't really know why I never went to go see Prometheus in theaters. So I ended up having to see it on DVD. So that's how I was introduced to Prometheus. But even even though I didn't see it in theaters, I probably will see the other Alien films if there is any others. Because I know with Disney owning the franchise now, I know they say they're continuing to want to put out stuff for the Alien franchise, but I also hear we might not see another movie. Instead, we might just see a TV series. So I don't know if you heard anything about that, Doug, but I I don't know. I don't really know what they could really do for a TV series, but maybe they could pull it off.
I I would think it'd be pretty hard. I certainly would give it a shot, but yeah, I think it would be kind of hard to keep that story going. Certainly hard to keep the suspense going, but the, I don't know. I don't know that I trust Disney to handle something as adult as the Alien franchise. It's we're not talking Snow White here.
Well, so does that so Doug, so does that mean the Alien Queen is now a Disney princess?
Well, maybe you'll end up seeing the Queen walking around with one of the other queens from the Disney Disney World and Disneyland with some of the cartoon queens.
Yeah, I when I saw that the Alien Queen is now Disney princess, I kind of chuckled because the drawing somebody made had like one of those princess crowns on her head, and she was like wearing a dress or something. So I'm like, oh no, and I'm just like, oh god, this is too funny. But I don't know. I don't really know what Disney can do, especially since we all know Disney is dark with just like weird hidden messages, but I don't think we've actually seen like a actual sci-fi horror film straight from Disney though. So this is definitely gonna be a interesting ride for sure. And like you said, I don't know how they're gonna be able to keep the suspense and everything. But I'll give it a shot for sure. But
Well,
anyway,
and if
yeah,
you could always go back and replay Isolation, because even my third time through, Isolation was still, or playing it playing it when I played the Japanese version, it still had a lot of sense of suspense and dread. But actually, when I played it first time on PS4, I actually found my chest was hurting by the time I would stop playing for the night, because it was that much suspense and that much dread, and I was actually scared while playing that game. And I actually had to I think I took a 2-week break before I started playing it on PS3, because I had to play it again, and I still had that a lot of that same experience when I played it again a couple years later, when I found out that there was a separate trophy list on the Japanese version. So I said, hey, I'll go play it again. Though it was
of course you
a
did.
little less. Yeah, it wasn't quite as scary, because there was the whole screwing around trying to use the Google Translate on my phone to translate the menus so I could figure out what I was trying to do. So that did kind of take me out of the game, and give my give my heart a little rest from the adrenaline and the terror. But it's still, anytime that you want the terror of Alien, I would say Alien Isolation is probably the game to play. Then as far as the movies go, I despised the third movie when I first saw it. And I still, to this day, will say that the theatrical release of Alien 3 was garbage. Not as bad as Alien Resurrection, but the director's cut that puts all of those scenes back in, all of the stuff that was cut out right before release, filling in all the holes, and explaining, the disappearance of several characters. That, I think, is also a very scary movie, and that's
Oh
another
yeah,
one for anyone that's only seen the theatrical release of Alien 3. I say watch Aliens again, then watch the director's cut of Alien 3, and you'll find that one to be much better and pretty scary.
I will back that up and say yes. I 100% agree with what Doug just said. And usually, what I even say is, if you're gonna just watch the franchise in general, I would just stick with anything of the director's cut, just because you may miss something that you'd like to have known that they taken out. Like I said though, about, well, as me and Doug were talking about with that one particular scene with Ripley, were talking about her daughter, um, trying to figure out where she is and stuff. Because I think that the scene even said like they went out in space looking for her or something. No, wait. Yeah, that she was, and like she was gonna go and explore space too, because that's like what her mother did. So it what's that word? It influenced her to like do what her mother doing, sort of deal, before Amanda Ripley wanted to go and look for her mom. Like, I mean, it was cool to know that, and I guess it helped, especially if you're gonna go into like Alien Isolation or any of the comic that mention Amanda Ripley. And there's a couple comics now that actually do tend to continue her story. Which, by the way, Doug, before I end this too, And even though I want to maybe save some of this too for when I do my Alien Isolation 5th anniversary episode in October, but or for October. But just out of curiosity, did you actually see the digital miniseries, the 7 episode that they did for Alien Isolation? Did you see that?
No, I heard a little bit about it, but I tend to try to hit YouTube and Facebook and Instagram as little as possible. So I admittedly do miss out on some things, and one of these days I will dig that up on YouTube. But I have not as of yet seen it, though I have heard from a couple sources that it was very good.
It's not bad. It's more of it's like you're really not missing much, Doug. Like there's it's really weird. Like there's parts from Alien Isolation game. There's like this weird animation from the game, but they try to make it like a third person thing. And then there's just if you remember the ending of Alien Isolation, we get to see that too, like Amanda's experiences and what she was facing when she was in orbit. So there's that for you. But anyway, to wrap this up, I guess I will say happy anniversary to Alien. It's still one of my favorites, even to this day. I just hope that nobody remakes it. I don't think anybody will, but with the way some films are being remade nowadays, I just don't see anybody, like we were stating before, I don't see anybody being able to portray Ellen Ripley as good as Sigourney Weaver did. I just don't see it happening. So if they're going to ever try to remake it, maybe they should just create a whole new timeline. And go for it.
I was just going to say that, I would throw in there that there's no reason to remake or reboot. We still have, there's still a gap between Alien Covenant and Alien. And there's still, I know Ridley Scott, I've heard two things, that he initially wanted three movies, then 4 movies, then back to 3 movies that would be prequels to Alien. So I mean, there's still at least one movie needed to tie in those 2 movies to fill that gap. Or 2 movies, great. And then there is still work that could be done, just continuing the storyline after the events of Alien Resurrection. Or I know there was talk of just ignoring Alien Resurrection and even Alien 3 and doing a movie to take place right after Aliens, which, I don't know about that. Of course, I do wish Alien Resurrection was never filmed. But, right now it shouldn't be rebooted. It shouldn't be refilmed. Finish up what we have. Then, if you feel the need to reboot, then Disney go ahead and reboot it, refilm it. But let's at least finish what we've got. Fill in that big gap between Alien Covenant and Alien.
Yeah, I think if anything, Ridley Scott just need to do one last film, which supposedly called like Alien: The Awakening or some weird thing like that. But the only other weird thing that I heard about this last film for his trilogy to help tie in the Covenant and Alien is that they're going back to Prometheus ways, which is they don't really have an alien in it. So I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. So I just hope that we can at least just finish it, so that way we can at least compare all 3 films into one, I guess, and then we can really decide whether or not it works or doesn't work, I think. And I did hear something about also, Doug, that they want to somehow bring Newt back and Alan Ripley, of course, and then they want to also bring back uh,
Hicks.
what the hell is his name?
Yeah, Hicks.
Yeah, Hicks. Yeah, and then wasn't there somebody else though besides Hicks?
There was talk. I think it was Neil. I'm going to get his name wrong. Blomkamp, something like that. I apologize to his fans and him.
Blomkamp. Yeah.
But there was talk that he was going to be doing a movie that was supposed to take place immediately after Aliens, and was either going to ignore Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection as if they never happened, or it was going to be something that where they again takes place right after Aliens, and then it would end with them, still back asleep on the Sulaco, and leaving Alien 3 intact. Just basically again sliding a movie in the middle there. I'm not sure how well that would have worked, but ignoring it, they could have done a lot of stuff. There was also something Bill Paxton said that he would be happy to come back as Hudson, though that would have been pretty hard to do. But we never did see Hudson die in Aliens. We just saw him being abducted or captured or taken. And then the assumption is when the reactor blew, he was killed. But again, we didn't see it, so they could have come up with any number of reasons for him not to have been in the reactor and killed when it went nuclear. But
yeah,
that last I heard that probably a year or so ago is that it was shelved and probably a dead project.
Yep, same. I heard that too, which was supposed to be like Alien 5 or something. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like I said, they're just they just should just create a whole new storyline, a whole new universe within the Alien universe, and just go create another story from there. Maybe not the same thing, but even take like maybe one of the old comics or one of the modern comics and turn it into a film or something, or like a TV series or even a short film, because there's a lot of Alien shorts now, whether it be fan made or not. Well, fan made mostly, but even like the fan made films that I've seen recently, they're phenomenal. I can't believe it. And I think that's what we're missing. I think if Disney were to hire fans, they could probably create a better movie than what we've been having with Prometheus and Covenant, to be honest. But I guess my final thoughts on this is just that I just hope we don't see the movie ever be remade, and that I can't wait for another, I guess, 10 years of Alien, because I just don't see it ever dying in popularity just because it's just that good.
Yeah, I can't think of any other 40-year-old film that I think really holds up the same, at least sci-fi wise. I mean, as much as I love Star Wars, you go and watch, you rewatch Star Wars, New Hope, and it just, there's so many things about it that just don't really hold up. That they come off as kind of campy now. Again, still love the film, but there's so many parts of it don't hold up anymore. But again, as I said earlier, with Alien, the only things I think don't hold up are really when you're seeing them work with the computers. That's the only thing where you just anytime you're showing the computers from that far, from 40 years ago, knowing what we know about computers now, it just, that stuff doesn't hold up.
Right. Oh, I don't even think I even mentioned it. So back for one last thing. I know you mentioned it, Doug. I don't think I even got around to it. But when you were mentioning what your problem was with Alien, I think the only problem that I had with the film was there was some sections I think that were a little bit too dark, and that's about it. But unless that was supposed to be the idea, I mean, I don't know. I just felt there was a couple scenes that felt a little bit too dark. But
There's supposed to be a lot of. I think it was you mentioned at one point that there were so many power outages from the one of the intakes taking in too much dust and damaging the engines of the electrical system when they were landing. And that's why there were so many. When they took off, they hadn't repaired everything yet. They just wanted to take off, get back into sleep, and you headed home. And that left a lot of sections dark, and which, if it wasn't so dark, it wouldn't have been so scary.
Yeah, true. I just was thinking though, if they were trying to make us to see something though, versus like the weird power outage that was going on, or the live wires that were swinging around. Maybe I was just too picky on that part, but the writing was just the only really nitpick that I had. Otherwise, it was good. It was the atmosphere that I think most horror films nowadays, when it comes to sci-fi or even horror, really, when it comes to like a creature or monster movie, it kind of doesn't have that atmosphere like Alien does, and like with that dark atmosphere where it's hiding in the shadows, or this area is so dark that we should be afraid of it because we don't know what is working in that dark area. And then we get like Covenant, where now we see the alien in daylight now and stuff. So it doesn't really make it creepier. It just shows us though that they can get pissed, I guess, and they will jump on your ship and try to bash in the ship cover just to try to get you. But other than
Well,
that, oh,
at
go
least
ahead.
that was better than the Diet Pepsi commercials with Michael J. Fox and the Alien
Oh, jeez.
back in '92. That really kind of made it made it hard to be scared of the alien when you see it's all it's interested in is drinking a Diet Pepsi.
I need to look up this commercial now. I need to see this. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I wish it's some sort of a fever dream, but no, it happened.
Oh, wow. Wow. On that note, Doug, thank you so much for talking, and we'll have to have you on again to maybe talk about the other Alien films if you'd like, and then because it's always good to get some more inputs, and I know you love the franchise as much as I do, if not a little bit more, and we can even talk about the shitty Colonial Marine that I know we try to avoid, but I just think it'd be interesting to talk about just because it's just one of those games where it's just like there was some interesting things in it, but really the downfall was just the budget and what we actually got for the final product. But then when it comes to Alien Isolation, that game is just going to be so fun to talk about because that is the game of the year, the game that makes the alien scary again. But yeah, but until then, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I was talking with Doug. And sorry that we probably should have talked more about something else. And oh my God, you know what? We're not done yet. I just realized I'm forgetting one important thing, and that is the Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack. I fucking love that soundtrack. And I'm so glad that they did a limited release run of the complete soundtrack on vinyl and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean everybody should know that I'm a very big soundtrack fan, and you're damn right that I do have that limited edition complete vinyl. and stuff like that. And I actually own all the soundtracks for the Alien for films and the Predator and Prometheus and Covenant. So yeah, you could say I'm a little bit of a soundtrack whore. That's fine. But Doug, what about you? Did you like the soundtrack at all?
You know, I'm having trouble hearing it. You know, in my memory. I do think that it certainly did help give us the atmosphere that was necessary to make the film so successful and so terrifying. But I did have the Aliens soundtrack on cassette, but I never had any of the other ones. And so, as I said, I can't really hear it, picture it, but I can just kind of remember my impressions there that it did help bring that atmosphere. It did. Without that, it wouldn't have been as terrifying as it was, which is obviously what was needed to make it such a successful, start of a successful series.
Yeah, it really did bring the atmosphere to life, and I'm just glad that Jerry Goldsmith was able to create the film the music for the film, I should say. And it's just his soundtrack is definitely going to live on. Jerry Goldsmith is just going to live on anyway. I mean, he done some incredible work for like Poltergeist, a lot of good movies. I can't even name all of them right now, but the biggest one is definitely Alien for 1979 and the original Poltergeist. So I don't know. I mean, he just knows how to create the right music for the atmosphere to give us that good way of bringing the scene to life. And on that note, I think that's it. Finally, so if anybody can hear this message, there's nobody left on this ship, and I am Podolsky with my friend Doug, and Doug and I are signing off.